Church here, and welcome to the Game Grinder, and welcome back to this continuing series of catch-up pickup videos. This being part 3 of this series. This time we're covering family thrift store hookups. And what I mean by that is my parents work at a thrift store currently. Basically, as things would come in, my parents would take pictures and send them to me and ask if I had interest in any of the stuff. A lot of times I was, sometimes I wasn't, but I managed to score quite a few things. I've actually been kind of concerned on how I was going to do this pickup video because there's so many things, but we'll just run through it and try not to waste a whole lot of extra time. So before we get to the games, let's go through some consoles and accessories. And this first one is actually a birthday present that they got for me. They know I like different versions, different colors of various consoles, handhelds, controllers, things like that. So they ended up picking me up a Nintendo DS case with a DS Lite Silver, so adding another color of the DS Lites to my collection. And then actually with that, I actually got a couple other DS Lites, but both of these turned out to be busted up pretty good. The pictures didn't really show what was going on, but I decided to get them anyways. They were only like $5 each. So fortunately I didn't pay much more for these, but I got a DS White and a DS Pink. And unfortunately, both of these hinges are broken, and there seems to be a lot of like weird kind of crud along the edges, which you probably can't see here, but deciding if it's worth keeping these for the color variants or if I should just try to find working ones eventually, which ultimately is the goal. And then we have a few random accessories here. So actually these I kind of stole from my brother when my parents picked him up a PlayStation 2. It came with these two PlayStation 2 memory cards, which I didn't have these color variants. Gave him a couple black memory cards to replace them because I had plenty of those. So that's always neat. And then I also got a Nintendo 64 controller pack. Then we have another PlayStation 1 controller variant, the, I guess, frosted blue PlayStation 1 DualShock controller. At this point, I think I have to be getting close to all the colors. I'm not sure how many there are, but I have a lot of PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 controllers. And then a few random Wii accessories. I got a Wii Motion Plus attachment for a black controller. Got another Wii Emote condom, as they call it. And I got another Wii steering wheel. So I have 4 of these now, so you can all steering wheel it up when we play Mario Kart. And if that was any indication, I also got a red Wii. So this is my second Wii. I have the original version. I had a Wii Sports version, but I gave that to my dad. And my brother managed to get a black Wii, which I hopefully will get from him eventually. So I think besides those, then there's a red, like the Wii, I don't even know what you call it. It has the black sides that opens up. I think that's all the versions of the Wiis. Speaking of versions, I got another PlayStation 1. Now, I still have my original PlayStation 1 that I purchased refurbished back in 1997 on release day of Final Fantasy VII. But of course, there are variations of the PlayStation 1 as well, and this is the version with the parallel port. So if you have like an action replay, Game Shark goes in there too. So wanted to grab that, really clean. And actually, then I had gotten another PlayStation 1, but I'm not keeping the console itself. I just decided to keep the box because this is the version of the PlayStation that I have. So I got a box for the DualShock PlayStation 1. And of course, I love having the boxes for my consoles, so that is cool. And then with that, last console-related thing here is a box for an Xbox 360. And this is your standard 360, which I have one. Unfortunately, the console that I have has the red ring and is not fixable, but gets some representation in my collection, and happy to have the box. Okay, so on to the bulk of this video, and this is a lot of games. Typically in my recent pickup videos, I usually show game footage. I plan on doing that here, but I might exclude some footage for some games. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do once I start editing this. The main thing is trying to not make this a crazy long video, which has a lot of potential to be just that. So without wasting more time, let's just jump into it. Kind of sticking to consoles here, so we'll just go for smaller to larger. So I just got one Wii game, and that is Wii Play, which is just a Wii game with a bunch of various mini games to enjoy. And then this one I was actually pretty stoked to get. It's pretty much worthless at this point, being a PC game and, you know, the whole DRM thing. But for anybody who might know, I have kind of various shrines throughout my collection, and I do have a Valve shrine. So trying to get all pretty much the Valve games to be represented there. And surprisingly enough, I did not have this because I originally purchased the orange box myself to get all these games, but it is the standalone version of Half-Life 2 Episode 1. Has a little water damage to it, but I don't care. This is pretty neat nonetheless. So then next here, let's check out the PlayStation 2 stuff I got. So first here we have the classic Grand Theft Auto 3. And then a game from a series that I've never played. I've always heard good things about the older releases. I've been hearing some decent things about the newer releases for this, but I got Hitman 2. Then a game that I've always heard good things about, never actually played it myself. I believe it's very similar to the X-Men Legends games, and that is Marvel Ultimate Alliance for the PlayStation 2. I believe this is kind of like your beat-em-up RPG, kind of like Diablo-ish game. Then one thing I thought was kind of interesting was just the timing a few months ago when there was all the hubbub about the Spyro remaster collection thing. I just happened to get 2 of the Spyro games. So I got Legend of Spyro Eternal Night and Spyro Enter the Dragon. I used to have the original Spyro game, but I don't know what happened to that, and that was years before I started collecting. And then probably the coolest PlayStation 2 game that I got here, nothing too wild, but something that I've wanted for quite a while, and that is the Street Fighter Anniversary Collection. This one including Hyper Street Fighter 2, which is like the ultimate Street Fighter 2 version, I guess, and then Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, which I've actually never played the Street Fighter 3 games, any of them. And I know there's the recent Street Fighter collection, which I would like to pick up as well, because that includes pretty much all the games. Then sticking with PlayStation, let's go with PlayStation 3 here. So we got a couple upgrade copies for me, which I am always excited to do, especially for games that I'm super thrilled about. And one of them here is the Red Dead Redemption Special Edition, which I had the standard version. This basically just comes with the slipcover as well as a soundtrack, so that is pretty cool. And then here's an upgrade, sort of, to Dante's Inferno. Basically, this one just includes the slipcover, the Divine Edition, and funny enough, this is actually still sealed, so I don't know if I'm going to keep the sealed version or not, because I don't really care, but still neat nonetheless for a game this old, I guess. Show up at a thrift store, mostly sealed. And then this one was kind of funny. I actually got this, and I was like, what is the deal here, before somebody pointed out that my eyes fail me, and I don't know how to read, but I got this Infamous Digipack thing that I didn't know that it was actually Infamous 1 and Infamous 2. I thought they were both Infamous 1. Apparently, like I said, I couldn't see the 2. And these, I guess, were pack-ins with one of the PlayStation 3 releases, but I didn't have either of the games, so now I have both of them. Then another game for a series that I've had interest in playing. Actually, one of the first PlayStation 3 games I ever played. I had a roommate at the time who was one of the first people that I knew that got a PlayStation 3, and she had gotten this game. Looked pretty neat. I just wasn't really playing the PlayStation at the time. Big into PC games. But this is Resistance: Fall of Man. Now I can finally have the chance to get to the series at some point. And then this one, not something I was ever really looking out for, but the fact that I got most of these games for like $1 or $2, decided what the hell to grab it. I am a Telltale series fan, not so much of a fan of this game, nothing against it, but I don't really know much about this, so I was like, you know what, I'll get it, and maybe it's pretty cool, and that is Minecraft Story Mode. So another Telltale release. Of course, if anybody's been following recent news, we have learned that Telltale is pretty much no more at this point. There was some slim hopes that they were going to keep a skeleton crew to finish up some stuff, but it just came out that they fired that last skeleton crew, which is unfortunate because it sounds like the employees really got screwed over by management. But some kind of, I guess, light at the end of the tunnel, as it sounds like Robert Kirkman, the actual writer of The Walking Dead, has gotten the rights to the games and is kind of championing the completion of the final season of The Walking Dead, the Telltale series, and it sounds like they're trying to make it a point to get as many of the original staff involved with that, so that is pretty neat. So then this next lot seems to be what a lot of people seem to be holding in the town where this thrift store is. A lot of this stuff came through, a lot of it passed on, a lot of Call of Duties, a lot of sports games, you know, kind of your run-of-the-mill stuff, but Apparently, this area is really big into the Xbox, and I got a lot of Xbox games, which is cool because I've only recently started collecting for the Xbox, even though I haven't played any Xbox or Xbox 360. I'm getting myself set up so I can have a lot of great games when I finally get to the system. So with that said, first one here is Soul Calibur 2 for the Xbox, and this version includes Spawn as a playable character, who happens to be one of my favorite comic book characters of all time, so that's pretty neat. Then for a game for a series that I've never been crazy about, don't really have much against them, I've just never really been a big deathmatch person, but this is Unreal Champions. Not saying I haven't played my fair share of Unreal in the past, because of course I did, especially being a PC gamer. When the price is right, might as well. Then this one I was actually really stoked to get. Again, kind of going back to that Valve collection. This being one of those games when I talk about my PC gaming days, and this is a game that I played for years. I originally started playing this back when the game was beta, and that is Counter-Strike. Now this is the Xbox version, of course, but when I started playing Counter-Strike was back in Beta 4, which I think might have been 99. At the time, the Colt, or the M4, actually had a scope, and I enjoyed Counter-Strike through full version up through Source. Played it for years, probably put thousands of hours into the game, but never actually had a physical version of it in any form, so hey, that's pretty neat to get this one. I would like to get the PC version and Condition Zero at some point, which I'm sure at some point I will. And then a game for a series that I haven't really played much besides the first more modern version. I forget what Dark Legacy, but this is Gauntlet 7 Sorrows. So I don't know if this is like the other Gauntlet games, but if it's anything like those, I'm in for a good time, like the multiplayer stuff. And then one of the things I go with when collecting for systems is kind of like some of the must-have games. Of course, this is a lot of these games could have been PC games as well, but some of these are harder to get for the PC. And you know what? I'm not hating. I'm not a PC Master Race kind of guy. I mean, I am, but I'm not. So this is The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind Game of the Year Edition, which I know a lot of people love this game. I actually never played Morrowind. I never finished Oblivion. It was really Skyrim was the first Elder Scrolls game that I really got into. But at some point I would like to go back to Morrowind because a lot of people say that is like the best of the Elder Scrolls games. So then these next two games, I actually mentioned one of the versions in my previous pickup video, but I decided to get them on Xbox as well, and that is The Simpsons Road Rage and Simpsons Hit and Run. So all of a sudden I go from pretty much no Simpsons games besides Bart versus the Space Mutants on the NES to a lot of Simpsons games, which I don't know if I need to repeat again, but I will anyways. I've never missed an episode of The Simpsons since it began airing in 1989. I still love the show. I will argue adamantly that the quality has never changed. I think people just kind of grew up or got old of it, got tired of it. The Simpsons never really changed. And I think everybody else did, which is unfortunate because it is a fantastic show still to this day. And then some games for a series that I usually just kind of avoid because they're kind of like a dime a dozen, but I was like, what the heck, might as well get it. They're not bad games by any means, but I grabbed Star Wars, Lego Star Wars, so I guess I'm going to have to start getting the rest of the Lego games as well. And then we got a pretty decent game here from a pretty decent racing series, and that is Burnout. Then this game I really know nothing about, but I was like, okay, looks interesting. Published by IDOS. Contains music by Moby, Fatboy Slim, Crystal Method, and more. And that is Mad Dash Racing, which kind of looks like to be like a generic mascot racing game, kind of like Mario Kart or Diddy Kong Racing. So if it's anything like those, could be a pretty decent game. And then the last OG Xbox game here is one that looked pretty interesting, and this is Cell Damage, which kind of looks like Simpsons like Road Rage or kind of like a Crazy Taxi kind of game, but done in a cell shaded design. Then on to the last little batch here is for the Xbox 360. First one here is Borderlands. I have this digitally for the PC, but hey, getting that physical version. Then the next one here is Perfect Dark Zero. Could be a sequel. I'm not super versed in Perfect Dark. Then we got Bionic Commando, which I've heard good things about. I think this is the good one. There's one that's bad. This might be the bad one. I don't know. The only Bionic Commando that I really care for is the NES version, but here we are. Then we got another game that I have the PC version of, and this is BioShock Infinite, the Complete Edition. I actually have the collector's edition that comes with the Songbird. Love this game, so getting another physical version for the consoles is just fine. Then another game that I probably will get for PC maybe when I finally get to playing it, I don't know, maybe I'll just stick with this since I have it, and that is The Witcher 2 Assassin of Kings Enhanced Edition. This is probably the #1 series that I feel like I need to play that I have not played yet. I hear Witcher 2 is awesome. I hear Witcher 3 is amazing. Blood into Wine is also amazing. I really need to play this series. I just need to make the time so I can play them all, but that's like hundreds of hours of gameplay. Someday I will get to The Witcher. Then, again, another, a lot of Valve representation here, which is fantastic because I love boosting those specific highlights in my collection. Funny enough, this is a game I originally purchased digitally when it came out because there was a really good 4-pack deal, even though at that time was when I was starting to really shift into trying to get stuff specifically physically, but you know, couldn't pass up on the deal with my friends, who are the people who played this with me. Picked up the Xbox 360 version of Left 4 Dead 2, possibly my favorite game series of all time. I got a couple favorite game series of all time. Left 4 Dead's one of them, Diablo being one of the others. Absolutely love this game. I think as is, I have like 700 hours in the Left 4 Dead games. Play a lot of versus, a lot of multiplayer. Then a game from a series that I don't really know a whole lot about, but decided to grab it anyways, hoping for the best, and that is Way of the Samurai 3. If anybody can kind of fill me in on this series, I would love to know more about it. Then another series that sounds like it's pretty enjoyable, but I've never played it, and that is Saints Row. Kind of your Grand Theft Auto style game. This one takes a lot more of a silly angle to it. I know the more recent ones are pretty out there. I don't know if the original ones were as well, but I'm guessing they probably are. And then actually kind of like one of the earlier games when I started going like away from digital PC games, that I was like, you know what, I'm buying physical PC games from here on out. It was one of the first PC games that I bought physically when I started collecting again, sort of, and that is Dead Space. Like I said, I have the PC version of this. I actually pre-ordered it, so I got the bonus Dead Space art book. Don't mind having more Dead Space in the collection. This being probably my favorite horror game. I know Left 4 Dead is technically horror, but when we're talking pure horror games, Dead Space is probably my favorite. And then another fantastic horror game. This game I think is terribly underrated. The new game that took the name and had absolutely no connection to the series. So when people think of this, they're going to think of this new game, which is supposed to be pretty good, but they had something really special here, and that is Prey. Now actually I have this on PC as well. I have the collector's edition for the Xbox 360, but I had it without the game, so now I have the game to make that complete. First person shooter, 3D realms, had some really ahead of its time ideas. First game to have portals, anti-gravity, Native American lead, Native American culture in the game, and some truly disturbing imagery. And I think this game still holds up very well. I don't like the doesn't hold up or holds up thing, but for the people who do use that terminology, this is one to definitely check out if you haven't. Then we have a Square Enix game that I'm not super familiar with. One of the few, I think, RPGs that ended up on the Xbox 360, and that is Infinite Discovery. Don't really know anything about this one, but again, for the price, decided to grab it anyways. And then to kind of round out my Halo collection that I now have, since I'm collecting for the Xbox and the 360 as well, got Halo 3. So I almost closed this out and almost forgot about some actual retro games that I got through my parents. Not much comes through this thrift store apparently, but I got a few. So let's just run through these real quick. We got Tony Hawk's Pro Skater for the Nintendo 64. I know there are some like fun facts about this game, but I can't really remember exactly what they were for the Nintendo 64 version. But, you know, of course, the classic that I played on the PlayStation. Then we got Star Wars Shadows of the Empire, which is a good or bad game depending on who you talk to. It seems to be kind of divisive. And then we also got the Namco Museum 64, which is just a collection of some classic Namco arcade games. Then the last game here is one that I actually used to play back in the day when I was in high school, when I had a computer programming course. There was actually two classes that were next to each other. One was our computer programming in C++, and the other class was, I think, is basically just a keyboarding and like computer essentials course. And we had a lot of flexibility in what we were allowed to do. I mean, this was the late 90s, so things were a little bit more wild westy when it came with computer usage in the education environment. I don't know what wizardry went on to get this, but somebody managed to get basically like an install version of Quake and Quake 2 that we were able to install on both of our computer labs. And because we were on a network, we were able to LAN. So essentially the two classes played against each other all the time in Quake. So got Quake 2 on the PlayStation 1. Outside of that, I never really played Quake, but for those few months that we did, I had an absolute blast. So that is going to do it for this pickup video. So a huge thank you to my parents for helping me out. Definitely some amazing deals here. Like I said, this all came incredibly cheap. And besides adding awesome games to my collection, adding cheap awesome games to my collection is my favorite kind of games to add to my collection. So there was a lot of stuff here that I don't know a lot about. Would love to hear your thoughts on some of these games. It's kind of horrifying when I get pickups like this because this is so many games that I know I'm not going to have time to play for an incredibly long amount of time. That backlog grows faster than I'd want it to, but that's how it goes when you're collecting video games. You sometimes just gotta jump on them deals. But I guess out of these, which ones would you say are the games that I should play first of the ones that I haven't played? So yes, please let me know your thoughts, and be sure to stay tuned because there is going to be one more part to this series, and that's going to be the final catch-up leftovers, which is basically the things that I've picked up since I started doing these videos again, but I've gotten some really, really awesome things. Then as always, thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you next time on the Game Grinder.